What was your Thanksgiving drama this year? The gravy was a war crime. The plastic cooking utensil melted into it. I was the first to find out. Macroplastics. My cat got up on the table and stepped in the pies my grandma made. The drama was all only in my head, but I got through it, didn't drink a drop. My grandmother's dog literally died an hour before dinner. My neighbors had cops over. Piece of crap beat his wife and smashed her head into the wall. We had their autistic son over to keep him away while the cops were talking to them, and CSI investigated the inside. The mashed potatoes were really good. Edit wrong word. Edit 2, so a couple extra details. The woman was pregnant, which made it worse, but got him additional charges. When I posted the comment, there was a helicopter looking for him, and the cops had been here for a few hours waiting for him to come back as he grabbed her car keys, phone, and car before dipping. Cops had pinged her cell phone like 20 miles away before they left. He came back an hour after my comment and got into a verbal argument, so the older son came over and knocked. I called the cops and stayed on the phone until they came. He refused to come out of the room until they forced him to. While arresting him, he was resisting, so they repeatedly threatened him with resisting and obstruction charges. The shithead is bulky but short, but it was quite a sight watching two mountain-sized cops carry him down by his arms while his little feetsies dangled beneath him. If I heard correctly, he got 2 assault charges, the woman and her unborn child, endangerment for the youngest son, disturbing the peace. The older son wanted to press charges, so they said that's all he could do. He wanted to ensure that if his mom didn't pursue the charges, he would stick with his. And I think theft/grand theft, but I didn't hear them repeat those when handing her the papers, so they may not have actually charged those. My dad forgot the pie. Every year he makes pecan pies, and my cousin loves them so much so that he got into baking just so he could make my dad's pecan pie recipe at any time. Well, my dad told my cousin not to make it because he was going to bring it. He made one for his coworkers and one for the family. We drove over an hour to my cousin's house, arrive, set up the food we brought, and my dad yells, "I forgot the pie!" My cousins had been looking forward to that pie all week. My uncle ended up sending them to the nearest grocery to find one. We also needed ice, but there were none. So we had to settle for store-bought blackberry pie instead. Found out my uncle is dabbling in meth with money he stole from family. But no worries, he plans to start making and selling to pay everyone back. Our neighbor and her daughter were supposed to join us, and she was responsible for bringing the ham. I made a turkey, and everything else, charcuterie board, sweet potato pie, slow cooker stuffing, rotel dip, the whole 9 yards, and she passes out drunk when she was on her way. So we ended up eating without her and my 7-year-old ball because her friend didn't come, and she was looking forward to it. Now, my mom doesn't eat turkey. She was counting on the ham. So I was pretty pissed off. I am highly allergic to dogs. I can barely breathe if in the same room as one. I've not yet found an anti-allergy med that works. My entire extended family has dogs that they love dearly. If I ask for people to leave dogs home, I am a heartless monster who seeks to exclude these noble furry family members. If I avoid the gathering, I am an unappreciative brat who needs to be part of family holiday celebrations. I often wonder why the same family members who openly tell me they value their pets more than me get offended when I point out that they value their pets more than me. My mom had to work Thanksgiving and she usually cooks. Me, my sister, and my girlfriend were all scrambling in the kitchen for hours to make a nice meal and have a plate for my mom when she got home. Well, I used gloves to clean the turkey before dressing it and putting it into roast. It roasted for over an hour and was basted twice before realizing that one of the gloves I was wearing had gotten stuck to the side of the turkey. It was all melty and gooey and attached to the wing and the wall of the roaster. We ended up sacrificing the entire wing and getting most of the glove off the wall of the roaster. Oh, and my mom said there was a bag inside the turkey containing the neck/gizzards/liver/heart, and that I should take the neck out, boil it with a little wine and chicken stock and use that to baste. Turns out that the neck wasn't in a little baggie, it was still inside the turkey, and I boiled the heart to make the baste LOL. There were a couple other close calls with the sides, but nothing major. Surprisingly, everything turned out really well and the food was delicious. My mom said it was the best turkey ever. If one of you guys tells my mom about the melted glove, I'll kill you. Oddly enough, the threat at the end made the entire story that much more wholesome. Elderly lady tried to kill a possum the size of a dog with a shotgun that jammed. Went over to fix the shotgun, and the firing pin slipped and blew a hole in the wall. 10-plus-year-old shells caused the issue. Then went out to remove the possum from the chicken coop and got stuck inside the chicken coop with the possum and fought it with a shovel. Not how I even remotely expected to spend my Thanksgiving. Edit. Florida possum still angry and alive somewhere. Not this year, but too good not to share. My Dad side, very Catholic and very mild-mannered. Can't hear but rarely wears her hearing aid, was sitting at the table with my grandpa, Mom's side, old retired steel mill worker who is way too open about everything. My grandpa was portioning out his medications after dinner, and the following conversation happened. Gran, what are those pills for? Grandpa, they're for my diarrhea. Gran, not able to hear, what was that? Grandpa, very loudly, I said diarrhea. My Gran seemed beyond horrified. We lost a piece from the Lego set my significant other is building, and with a 1.5-year-old, that means everything stops until it's been located. 20 minutes later found it in the instruction book. It was a low-key Thanksgiving overall. Wasn't really drama for my family since I seemed to be the only sane one, but my aunt came over for dinner while knowingly having COVID. Edit, I have just woken up. To maybe answer some questions, this is all my mother's side, and everyone is fairly conservative so they're all team. COVID isn't that big a deal. As far as I know, no one is a COVID denier, so while I was out I think the rest of the family that was there got my aunt to put on her mask and quarantine a bit. I was just kinda in shock the whole night. Even if you believe COVID isn't a big deal, if you know or even think you have it, why would you come over? I lost the entire food budget in the grocery store parking lot earlier this week, so I had to feed the family from random stuff I had laying about. The kids had chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes. Another flawless Thanksgiving in the history books. Cheers to all. Hispanic family here, so y'all know alcohol is involved. It started off with drawing names for Secret Santa, and now we are hearing about how much of a whore each one of my aunts were. This one is probably the funniest in the whole thread. I'm the black sheep of my family and the outcast. Most of my family has disowned me. I spent today in rehab. It's my 10th day in, 45-day program. I'm done with drinking and drugging. It wasn't that bad at all. Watched football with the other addicts and had a hot meal delivered to us from the VFW. Yeah, I'm in a VA hospital. It's for the best. Holidays are hard for users. I always drink harder on special occasions, so I'm in here away from temptation. Wish y'all the best. I'll see ya at Christmas. My father-in-law always brings olives and baby dill pickles. My children love that tradition, and my 8-year-old banks on that being the bulk of her dinner. This year he forgot the olives and brought sweet pickles instead. We will never forget this year. Grandpa better cough up the goods this Christmas, or he's going to be disowned. My stepdad called out his ex for smoking weed, so much weed that she couldn't afford things. In front of the kids. All the grandkids came over, and they are toddlers. They ran around the house most of the night in a pack, screaming and causing chaos and disorder, and eventually, they made their way to the mantel above the fireplace where they discovered a box that they just couldn't resist picking up and opening. The oldest one grabbed handfuls of gray dust out of the box and started throwing it up in the air in the living room, yelling out, "It's snowing, Mommy!" While my aunt stared in shock and horror. Apparently the kids found the ashes of our aunt's old cat and couldn't help but spread the love. Swear this just happened a few hours ago, and I couldn't make this up. This was a roller coaster from start to finish. As soon as I read gray dust, I gasped. Although there were only going to be 5 of us, I picked up a 25-pound turkey. Bought it frozen on Saturday. By Tuesday, it was still rock solid, so on Wednesday, it had to spend the day in the sink covered in water to defrost. Internet says it should take 5 to 6 hours to cook. Friends are coming at 3 p.m., so I put it in the oven at 9 a.m. Basting it every half hour. At noon, I think the skin is pretty dang brown, so I grab the thermometer and find it's done. At freaking noon. 3 hours to cook a 25-pound bird? What kind of super oven do I have? We call up our friends, say the bird is done, and can they come earlier? They say sure. I've cooked turkeys before, but my late wife or my son had always made the gravy. But this year, it's up to me. And to me, gravy is the cornerstone of the meal. I've spent the last week reading and watching videos about how to make gravy, and damn did I nail it. The turkey was perfectly cooked, the gravy was amazing, and the night was a huge success. The drama was all in my head about getting the turkey cooked right and making a decent gravy, and man, am I relieved. My mom hates this time of year because of all the cooking and cleaning she has to do, makes her depressed. So we went to a restaurant instead. Everyone was happy. We're probably never having home-cooked Thanksgiving again, lol. Some context, we usually pray before we eat the food. Well, this year we were praying, and I look up to see that my dog has jumped on the table, grabbed a whole stick of butter, and is on his way out the doggy door with a whole stick of butter in his mouth. Animal lovers, remember to keep your chairs pushed in. Edit. Thanks for 1K upvotes. I dropped a half-full container of cottage cheese, and the dogs were outside. I had to clean it up myself. Our family uncle crushed one of the kids at air hockey, made the kid cry, and posted about it on Reddit. I'm the uncle. Made my nephew cry in Monopoly. Sorry kid, learn to manage your money. Wanna buy every property you see? Pay the price when you land on my few properties with hotels. Apparently, I'm the butthole. No drama really, but that was because my wife and son were sick and we didn't go visit any family this year. We just stayed home. My sister, her best friend, and my niece were so loud and belligerent the rest of us were convinced the neighbors would call the cops. My mom tried to warn my sister that she could end up getting arrested, but my sister pulled the "I know my rights" BS. Had to have a talk with my kid when we were leaving about not repeating anything she heard said tonight because my sister, her best friend, and my niece were saying non-stop deeply inappropriate shit and slurs. I'm insisting on a Thanksgiving with just me, my mom, and daughter next year cause frick dealing with that again next year. Although the highlight of the night was when my sister tried to say she's not nor has ever been homophobic and everyone there had receipts to prove her wrong. That was hilarious. My mom died in a house fire about 6 months ago, and my dad's new girlfriend, of less than 2 months, who I've only met twice, just moved into the house after repairs were finished. This complete stranger then moved her 10-year-old daughter in as well and completely decorated our childhood home in her family pictures and ugly Texas-themed decor. And then they didn't invite either me or my brother to Thanksgiving dinner, which has never happened in either of our lives before. Really hoping 2022 is a better year. My lawyer liberal aunt was invited to dinner along with my mega anti-vaxxer uncle. Yep, it went just as how you thought it would go. Oh my god, you invited Facebook to dinner? LOL. My aunt and grandma got into an argument about whether there are prostitutes in our county or not. Grandma looking at aunt. How do you know there aren't any here? Aunt. Because they're all down in blank, dumbass. I lost my shit. Literally, grandma could have won the argument right there by putting an offer out. My grandma decided to randomly start antagonizing my brother about him becoming an atheist. She left in tears. Absolutely bawling. Grandma messed around and found out, apparently. Dinner wasn't served until 7:30. People were mad as hell. Ended up in the emergency room at 3 a.m. with kidney stones. It is literally just me and my wife, and our pets. Unless the cats decide that tonight is Fight Club, there was no drama. This was my first Thanksgiving without my mom, so I volunteered to work. One of my coworkers was telling me about how her extended stay messed up her room key and weren't on property to fix it, so she was going to sleep in her car till tomorrow. It is cold tonight. I gave her money for a hotel tonight as a PIF in honor of my mom. My mom was cheap and a terrible tipper who would never have given money to a stranger, so yeah, my mom inspired generosity in death. My sister sold some narcotics to an undercover cop at her job. Local PD raided her apartment and arrested her an hour before she was supposed to show up at my parents' house for dinner. Edit, meth in case anyone was wondering. Also, today our family learned my sister sells meth. Pre-ordered a ham, we didn't get it. Got an organic ham from Sprouts. It said it came with a glaze. It did not, so we made our own, which was good too. But we didn't have the right seasonings except for cinnamon toast crunch topping, so we had a cinnamon toast crunch ham. Edit, the glaze was honey and butter. Do I know how much of these ingredients? Absolutely not, because I don't pay attention. My aunt's pet lynx tore open my nephew's scrotum. Straight to the ER. One of my cats grabbed a slice of turkey and then ran off. The others thought it was a game, and those started the great meat chase of 2021. My life is kinda boring. My parents, who have been divorced for over 25 years, spent Thanksgiving together at my mother's house with me, my spouse, and my kids. They do this every year to make it easier on me and so I can have one day a year where we are all together again. Before, I would try to have 2 meals to make sure everyone had a special day. They decided in order to make my day special, we should just have one with all of us there. My parents put both of their egos aside for me. Even after all these years, we are still a family. My mother-in-law locked herself in her room because I wouldn't let her hold her grandson after he'd been fussy all day, and I finally got him to settle for a nap when we got there. I didn't want him to wake being passed from one person to another. So she called me a bad mom. My grandma, who rarely ever talks, decided to spill 30-year-old tea on my mom, late granddad, and the war. She gathered up everyone that wasn't born then and started the story like a folklore. It was so dramatic and weirdly diabolical I thought it was some movie she'd seen before the big reveal at the end that the antagonist of the story was actually my mother as a teenager. Always wondered why out of her 8 kids my mom is the least favorite. And I can't even ask her about it, or let her know I know, or a full-blown war will start. They used regular green beans in the green bean casserole instead of French cut. My cousin got locked up around 1 a.m. last night, so technically Thanksgiving, for trafficking methamphetamine and possession of a stolen firearm. Neither of which were his, but the guy he was giving a ride to. His bond is $500,000. Happy Thanksgiving. My mother-in-law was admitted to the ICU by her primary doctor yesterday afternoon. At 4 a.m. she had to undergo emergency surgery lasting 6 hours. They still can't get her heart rate down, and her kidneys may be failing. And my brother-in-law said that we were being dramatic because if she was that sick, he'd have known before now. Edit, wow. This blew up. Thank you all for the well wishes. I think his reaction is because he hasn't talked to his mom in months. His adopted daughter/niece, by blood, got pregnant and he did not approve, so he cut her off. My mother-in-law refused to stop talking to her granddaughter, so he cut her off too. I think his reaction is denial because he refused to return her calls for months. Update: she's doing much better today. My 5-year-old son peed in the cat food bowl while I was cooking and then cut his own hair while I was eating dinner. Chaotic evil. My girlfriend's nieces have lice. And they were constantly hovering over my son. Also, their dad didn't seem to give two shits. My dad said this was the best Thanksgiving dinner he's ever had. I cooked. Our oven heated to 400 but didn't keep its temperature. When we went to take everything out, the temp was only 225. Had to reheat everything, and keep a close eye on it. My cousin's neighbor/best friend caught COVID, and was depressed about being stuck in the house while everyone else was out for the night with relatives. So, they stole the pumpkin pie from the fridge and ate the whole thing. Edit: I should mention that the rest of the family tested negative, which is why they were out. It would be hilarious/sad if he couldn't even taste it. This is hilarious, and I'm laughing at your comment. All I can picture is the poor bastard sobbing into this pie because he can't taste it, while sitting against his bedroom door. I think my mom is still in the driveway telling stories, saying goodbye. I am getting ready for bed. Also, my brother didn't show, but he said he was going to be with his family. So it wasn't a surprise except to my mom. She brought a birthday cake. His birthday is June, but she hasn't seen him. We had to record us all singing him happy birthday? So, no big drama, just a family of widows. None. My wife's extended family ticked us off last year. Hurt her bad. So, we ate out for the first time ever. When we came home, I noticed that she was stress-free. This year, she asked me to go out again. We did today. Went to our local Cracker Barrel. And it was good. Above all, she is stress-free, which is good. Stress-free is the best. We had 2 women in our friend group that hung out together a lot. Number 1 turned out to be a narcissistic cunt and tried to make number 2's life miserable, and for a good part succeeded. So when we took 2 out to a festival and had lots of fun, she cried at the end because it was a stress-free day. She was so happy to be able to go out and enjoy herself without someone who made her feel like crap all the time. My 10-year-old son beat me at ping pong. Twice. Legally he owns the house now. Had to listen to my dad talk about how the communists are conspiring with our podunk town's Walmart to make the aisles narrower. I want to be in this much denial about gaining weight. My partner's roommates shoved me into a wall and threatened to throw me and my partner down the stairs and knock me the frick out. All because they were under some deluded impression that I had been stealing toilet paper from them? Anyway, check. File a police report. Off my Thanksgiving bucket list, I guess. My parents' cat chose them after fires took over our state last Thanksgiving. She came to the door and decided she was ours. They tried to find her owner with no luck. Thanksgiving morning this year, cat is missing. My parents are yelling about how she stayed for a year and chose to go back. They're tearing up the house. She had just been to the vet, so they thought maybe she was upset. Hours later they find her in a closet they already looked in. She was cuddled up in some blankets and sleeping. I think she was sore from a vaccine she got. My mom is in tears. My dad won't let the cat's feet touch the floor. She is being carried everywhere and fed treats in his arms. Drama. My cousin was apparently at a party last night. This morning when she left, she gave a friend a ride home, and when the guy got out of her car he was shot 5 times. She rushed him to the ER and he died shortly after. Needless to say, she wasn't at dinner. She is doing as fine as she can be. My future monster-in-law told us last week her and the kids were COVID positive and in bad shape. She said they weren't doing Thanksgiving, so don't bother showing up. Guess who sent long and angry texts about us not showing up to dinner? An argument about the Left Behind series being fictional or not. My aunt got upset because my cousin and I called the series fictional. Not Christian, however, either of us were attempting to debate the validity of the Bible's telling of the end times. We were simply stating that the series was fictional by definition. Doesn't the whole series outline the end of the world which hasn't happened? How can that be factual? My mom, who I've been no contact with for most of my life, said she wanted to reconcile and please come to Thanksgiving so she could see her grandson. She wasn't there when we arrived, and told my sister that she didn't want to have dinner with us. Literally nobody cared, and we had a great Thanksgiving without her. Honestly dodged a bullet. Father-in-law got drunk, took his shirt off and then arm wrestled my son, lost. Then tried to tackle his daughter, my wife, also lost. Everyone is worried grandma has dementia, but for some reason she made a pie. Everyone ate it, and pretended it was pie. Not sure what to call it. It was in a pie pan, there was no crust. It had apples. We found out grandma gets competitive as hell in beer pong. Semi-related, but my husband made espresso martinis for my family last Christmas, and after a couple, grandma fell over trying to return a shot in a game of table tennis. Might have to go half strength on the cocktails this year. She's nearly 80. My boyfriend's brother bought over these really spicy chips he got at Five Below. I think they are called the spiciest chips in the world, I don't know, lol. Anyways, both of them ate one. About 5 minutes later, I walk into the kitchen and I see my boyfriend with tears rolling down his face and stuffing ice cream in his face LMAO. Then he disappeared for a little bit, so I went upstairs and found him laying in the hallway, drenched in sweat and barely able to even speak. He said he threw up and he wasn't human for the next little bit. Both their grandparents were calling them idiots lol. Novices. You're supposed to prime up the digestive system by eating a banana first. He's gonna be having round 2, spicy but whole boogaloo on the toilet tomorrow. My great-grandmother referred to my baby cousin as cute but odd. The baby has Down syndrome. I laughed, but I felt compelled to justify myself to the interweb. It was relief at understanding that everyone has that person. My mom complains that my sister's weird-ass kid doesn't listen. He's legally deaf, Mom. That's to be expected. My Thanksgiving dinner was me, my parents, and my younger sister. Just the 4 of us at my parents' home. Mom got a text message from my aunt, Mom's sister, about how grandma, Mom's mom, was bad-mouthing the food she made and talking about how her boys, Mom and Aunt's brothers, can't be expected to eat this stuff. Mom texted Aunt back with, "Tell her that guests don't get to complain about free food, they just get to choose if they want to eat or not." Apparently, Aunt took this advice, because about 20 minutes later Mom got several texts and voicemails, she didn't answer her phone, about how Aunt kicked people out early and how Mom ruined Thanksgiving by telling Aunt to say that. This is why we stopped going to family Thanksgivings, by the way. An oven mitt suddenly and unexplainably caught fire while sitting on its own in the middle of the countertop. I think that's proof enough that the natural habitat of the chaos gods is every popular holiday. There's a strong possibility that my stepmother sabotaged my stepsister's cooking. My 17-year-old cousin stood up in the middle of dinner and announced he got a girl pregnant, and she was keeping the baby. Most people laughed until about 30 awkward seconds went by, and one by one we started realizing that he was in fact serious when he started going into details. My 80-year-old grandma, who hasn't had a drink of alcohol in over a decade, drank wine straight out of the bottle after. My sister-in-law let everyone know that her husband has a small penis. One Christmas Eve my dad's then new girlfriend blurted out * that my dad has a thick penis at the dinner table in the presence of all his kids, including me, their significant others, and his sister. I had never seen a woman in her 40s turn that red into the stunned silence that followed when it registered what she said. My dad hid his face in his hands for a solid 5 minutes. * I forgot the exact context, it's been 10+ years. But it was an absent-minded off-the-cuff comment in response to something someone said. She didn't just randomly throw it out there. After finishing off my truck stop turkey meal in my big rig truck, I went to use the facilities. Guy in the stall next to me was loudly watching funny videos on his phone and whacking off and moaning and intermittently laughing at the video. Edit. All I heard of the video was a woman saying, "What's the most expensive device in your kitchen?" I'll be hearing that and remembering his mossy oak hunter camo Crocs for far longer than I want to. The power went out at the host's house and I ended up cooking and hosting at the last minute. This happened to a bunch of people in San Diego today. Something like 5K homes had power shut off due to fire risk. This is likely the last Thanksgiving we'll have with a very close family friend. He himself doesn't have any family, so he's been coming to our Thanksgiving for about 20 years. He's 54 now and has terminal stomach cancer. He doesn't have long left. He can't do chemo anymore. His last round almost killed him. We all had a good time, but the whole evening had that undertone, and we were all trying to have at least one last Thanksgiving moment with him. My kids got hammered Wednesday night. One got left at the bar and walked 3 miles to get home. I woke up at 3 a.m. and saw that one kid was missing, so I called him. He was still a mile from home, so I drove to get him. When I got to him, the police were questioning him. Said they had a report of a man with a weapon having a mental health crisis. Luckily, they got another call and let my doofus go home with me. A long time ago, I got really drunk at a bar, and when it was time to go home, I walked for 2 hours to a house I hadn't lived in for over 5 years. It was getting light by that time, and I stopped in the driveway realizing I didn't live there anymore and turned around and walked back for 2 hours to my apartment near the bar I had been at. This was 25 years before Uber existed. So yeah, young drunk people do stupid things. My aunt pretended to be paralyzed from COVID to avoid taking care of her sickly mother. So who kicked her in the shins to test it? My mom found out a week ago that she has terminal lung cancer and has 6 to 12 months to live. Needless to say, there was a cloud over the meal. I got 1st and 2nd degree burns on my foot and calf from boiling water. We accidentally spilled some warm turkey grease on one of our dogs. He didn't seem hurt, but the other 6 dogs at the house would always lick him whenever he walked past. It was funny and sad to see how pathetic he looked being licked by all the other dogs. Showed up to the in-laws, Mill nowhere to be seen. Phil is in the kitchen working on almost finished dinner. We're told Mill isn't feeling well and is in the bathroom. Husband goes to check on her. Comes back a while later. Turns out she was stressed and ornery earlier in the day, so Phil offered her one of his edibles he has for medical purposes. She ate her first ever edible on Thanksgiving, got dinner halfway done, then ended up on the floor of the bathroom with dizzy spells and nausea. By the time we finished up dinner, she had fallen asleep. We moved her to her bed, then ate dinner without her. It was weird. That's gonna be the greatest leftover she's ever had. My cousin unfortunately came out as a flat earther while I was showing off my brand new telescope I bought recently. I didn't know that coming out as stupid was a thing. My 12-year-old cousin wouldn't eat any of the food that my 80-year-old grandma spent the whole day making because it wasn't Brazilian. His parents are 100% Italian, and we do not have any Brazilian relatives. His parents are brain surgeons, so they're loaded, and their excuse was that he doesn't eat homemade stuff. Only high-end. I have no idea what that had to do with Brazilian food, but I'm assuming it's some sort of phase. I don't even think he's had Brazilian food before. Edit. Holy shit, I woke up with a lot of replies, but for clarification, my dad and his whole side of the family were born in Italy but had me here, so I'm American, and they celebrate Thanksgiving for me and my siblings/younger cousins. Didn't Grandma think to shave the turkey? My in-laws have a place at a lake an hour or so from our house. Every time we go, my sister-in-law takes the bedroom with a full bed and toddler bed for herself and her one child, who sleeps with her. Her other 2 children sleep with my in-laws. My husband and our 3 children are left trying to figure out where to sleep, usually on an air mattress on the living room floor. Well, we came early and took the room. She is livid, stomping around and slamming doors. Has been for 4 hours. Update. Thank you to everyone who responded. Sister-in-law eventually went to bed around midnight, after saying for hours that she was going to go to a hotel instead of sleep in the other bedroom with a twin mattress. Mother-in-law told her this morning she better knock it off, and the day has been relatively normal. I basically talked with her like nothing was wrong. Tried the whole kill them with kindness approach, seemed to work. Was actually a really good day, best holiday we have had. Played board games and laughed, strange considering how it started. Had to call a tow truck on some teenager, friend of our neighbor's kid, because he wouldn't move his car that was blocking my mom's driveway. She told him to move it since she needed to get something for dinner. He answered that he shouldn't had to move it because it's a public street. I go get the stuff and then get home. I again tell him to move it because I want to park up the driveway. Shouts at me that I can find parking up the street. Now he has no car for Thanksgiving and cop gave him a ticket. In-laws are visiting from out of town. Except father-in-law decided to leave yesterday and go home before Thanksgiving and did not come back. He told my wife and I, just not his wife. Mother-in-law is still here. FYI, this is normal for him. Is he spending Thanksgiving with his mistress' family? Both my sister and I thought each other was cooking the turkey. 2 days ago I made a scrumptious roasted squash soup with vadouvan and made turkey stock. Last night my husband and I made cranberry sauce. I got up early today to steam a persimmon pudding and roast a few turkey wings so I would have drippings for gravy. Before my sister and her husband arrived, we assembled the dressing, chopped the potatoes to boil for mashing, and laid out a beautiful meat and cheese platter. My sister and brother-in-law arrived with pumpkin pie and the makings for a beet and farro salad. I asked her where the turkey was and she thought I was joking. We are all full, having eaten all the sides, but dang am I ever craving a leftover turkey sandwich. 2 bites into my meal at my mother-in-law's house, my Ring doorbell alerted me to someone ringing my doorbell. I pulled it up and catch an old man entering my house. I bolted out of my chair and went home. She lives close. I get there and no one is there. I pull up the video and see he exited like 20 seconds after he entered, grumbling, Wrong house." The funny thing was, as we were leaving I thought to myself, did I lock the front door? What are the freaking odds? My food was still warm when I got back to my mother-in-law's house. I walked into the wrong house on Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I was 24 years old, Almeo, but as soon as I walked in and saw people I've never seen before, I turned around and said, "Bye." It was then that I realized a lot of people probably leave their front door unlocked on Thanksgiving. My 21-year-old sister will graduate from college in less than a month. My brother congratulated her on being the first person in our family to graduate college without getting pregnant. Turns out that's not true. She started sobbing and got in her car and drove away. Whoops. I have a history of saying shit to someone at exactly the wrong moment in that person's life. I can relate. My dad's wife is back on meth. She hid his keys inside his car so that he can't find them, but it will still start, push to start car, so she can drive without him knowing. She also stuck a magnetic tracker thing on under his seat. I also found out that my cousin with Down syndrome can knock back whiskey just like she's drinking water. She parties harder than I ever could, and I'm jealous. Hey, just FYI, your dad can get a new key program to the car, and the old one will not work anymore. So even if you still can't find it, it won't be able to start the car. Daughter and her fiancé brought their huge dogs over. The dogs ate our turkey and attacked our dogs. I specifically asked them not to bring the dogs. All in all, one of the better Thanksgivings in recent memory. A large mixing bowl full of yams disappeared into nothing while everyone was trying to get food on the table. We have looked absolutely everywhere there is to look, and it's just gone. 9 people seriously questioning their sanity now. There are lots of things that could have happened to the yams themselves, but the bowl being missing is a real head-scratcher. 8 questioning sanity, 1 pretending. I might win this year. Uncle's girlfriend, who mind you spent several years in prison for manslaughter, went after him with a knife. Ended up stabbing him a couple times. No serious wounds, as he managed to overpower her and get the knife away, but my god, it's redneck entertainment at its finest. Yes, she is now sitting in jail. Edit, need to add that they didn't break up until after their court date. Apparently she expected him to post bail. And that was the final straw. Half the family didn't show up, so my dad started doing impressions of them. Closed the restaurant I work at, I'm a manager, 3 hours early so the kitchen guys could go home and spend some semblance of a Thanksgiving with their families, assumedly against the wishes of our GM/director of operations. Waiting on the angry emails/phone calls/sit down. Whatever, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. I separated from my alcoholic husband last week, so it was quiet and peaceful. My first Thanksgiving without him in 33 years. I also accidentally broke a glass serving platter that we received as a wedding present. How symbolic.